Emotional Weightlifter. Peter works with attorneys. So, attorneys out there, you got someone here today who understands you. And so, if you got questions, if you want to comment, please do so because we're going to leave information for you concluding this podcast. I'm Marlene Foster with Empower the Vision. And I want to say to you, this young man, I've had plenty of discussions with. If you go to my site, Walk Talk with Marlene. Walk Talk with Marlene on YouTube. You will see plenty of discussions with Peter Abrahamsen. Peter, thank you for joining us today. And I just wanted you to start by telling us I know where you're from and everything, but I know you've moved also. Can you just give us a little bit about your background and who you're doing business with and that sort of thing? And then we can move on, okay, from that point. Thank you,
Okay.
Peter, for joining me today.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Marlene. It's always a pleasure having a chat with you. And as you said, we've been through loads of topics over the years, and it's always been a great pleasure. Now, I am from Denmark, and I have been living in the UK for the last 35 years. So I've actually been in the UK more years than I have in Denmark. This is where I am. This is where I wanted to start my career, and this is where things changed. From what I thought I was going to be doing to what I now am actually doing. And that leads into the question, should I stay or should I go? And we can come back to that. But I am now working with the legal profession. Lawyers have a dreadful mental health reputation worldwide and has had that for generations. So some of it is self-inflicted through the way they behave in business. And other stuff is because they are actually human beings. So you lawyers out there, I know you're human beings. You have a life outside of work like everybody else, and life, as we know, doesn't happen in a straight line. So this is where I come in when you don't know who to talk to, what you really need to talk about. This is where I come in, almost like a conversation A&E, anything and everything. People don't always know if they want counseling, therapy, or coaching. It doesn't sit right. Just want to talk to somebody, which is why I totally avoid the term counseling, therapy, or coaching. I do emotional weightlifting. So it's not about making life easier. It's about making you stronger than the weight that you're carrying. And we sometimes do that by lightening the load, which is the emotional weightlifting. So I work predominantly with individual lawyers, but I am also getting inquiries about what can you do for our law firm as such. And that's where my immediate past life comes in, where I used to do the people side of things in supply chain consultancy. The processes, the procedures, what works, what doesn't, how do people function within the organization. I can't talk about IT or accounting or anything like that. That's not my thing. I'm about people, and that's what I've always been, even though I didn't actually realize it to begin with.
Wow. You know what, Peter, I just wanted to start off with asking you though, how has your business though changed over the years since the pandemic? Tell me about the transition for you, the transformation from the pandemic, to today.
My business is the latter part of my career. I started out in my career thinking, I'm in this for myself. It's about me. I want to get a good job somewhere, and I want to go to the UK because I'm a translator and interpreter from Copenhagen Business School. So with my master's in English and bachelor's in German, I thought, yep, I am going to live in the UK because that's where the language is spoken. So naturally, I'm going to start there. And the pigeonholes we're being put in the UK are far bigger than in Denmark. So I would have some space to actually use my qualification in a slightly untraditional way that I had thought of. That never happened. Okay, so I thought career is about me, it's about making money. Now that has shifted completely to my business is about my clients. I'm here for my clients. My clients are not here for me. And that makes a huge difference into how you treat your clients and how you treat your business. So if we go back to the pandemic, I had already left my previous life as a supply chain consultant because the values of the business and the values of our clients were completely different from my values. And it just got to the point where I was so fed up moaning about work all the time when I was back in Denmark for Christmas holidays. And so I decided one January, I'm coming back from holiday and I'm going to resign. And so I did. Now, I didn't jump without a parachute. So a couple of years prior to that, I'd started Better Lives, which is the company name that I'm trading under. As a side hustle, I was doing sessions, evenings and weekends, and building up and making my mistakes and all that stuff. And when push came to shove, I was up and running as a business. And I first started when you and I met during the pandemic. My target group was CEOs, because I was used to working on the shop floor with the forklift drivers, the layers in between, and the people in the boardroom, which of course include the CEO. So I thought, I know what position these people are in, what they're up against. I can do something for and with them. I just got no traction at all. Not interested. No, I haven't got a budget for this. There was just nothing. So I thought, my niche is the job title of people, but it's too wide and too broad. Who do I actually have an affinity with? Who would I like to work with? And I thought a couple of times in my life, I'd wanted to become a lawyer myself. So maybe that's a profession that I should look into more. And I just had confirmation through my research of the rumors that I had heard and the stories I'd heard from people I know who are lawyers. So to me, that was now my new natural home. And my messaging got far more specific. My reach got better. The traction of what I said and did shot through the roof, because now people knew who I was, what I stand for. And it wasn't just, I'm all things to all people. No one can be that. So that was really how my business has changed since you and I spoke. I'm essentially talking about the same things. I've now homed in on just one more narrow demographic, which I think is, a lot of people don't, because they think, ooh, I'll lose some business. But actually, we gain business when people understand who we are and what we're there for.
Very true. Very true. And I was listening to you talk about your clientele, our attorneys. So when you're talking with them individually, okay, I want to relate back to actual discussion you and I had maybe four almost 5 years ago in 2021. When you talked about, you said to me, Marlene, it's lonely at the top. And you said, we have to look at both sides of the coin.
Yes.
I want you to reflect on that with you when you're talking to attorneys about themselves and the office setting, employees. What do you say that helps them to become more founded?
We have to look at both sides. As the saying goes, there's two sides to a story, and then there's the truth. So we all have our own views. Again, should you go or should you leave your job? And should people be allowed to work from home? We talked an awful lot about that. Or should they be in the office? And as I keep saying, it's never an either or. It's not like you must be in the office or you must always be remote. There has to be some sort of halfway house, a middle of the road that makes sense for the company, for the department, for the team, for the individual. And of course, the more flexible you are, the more complicated things get, but you also get better productivity when people thrive. And a lot of people decided to leave. We talked about the great resignation, because people are motivated by benefits, by perks. And if somebody down the road offered them the opportunity to work remotely, that was a big thing at the time, they would grab that and they wouldn't care who that employer was, as long as they could get what they wanted. Now, I also ended up having people with social anxiety, first because of the pandemic, that we were all taught to stay at home. But after that, people were anxious about getting back into circulation again. They couldn't deal with big numbers of people around them. So the brain is very good at adapting to the situation that you're in, and it had to adapt back again. So it was I had a lot of conversations with clients and also other people you meet in the street or over a coffee somewhere. That is all well and good just hammering the employer. But you also have to say, well, what's my part in this? Can you look at this from the employer's perspective? And if we all only think about what's in it for me, then it will be a very one-sided thing. So, as a famous for saying, don't kick the ball, don't kick the player. What is the issue we are dealing with? Why are we going to work? Why do we have a job? Why do we run a business? And as I started out saying, I'm there for my clients. I don't see my clients as being there for me, because if I did that, I would count them as a cash cow, only interested in the money they can give me, and then I would not give them the service that they need. So if you are an employee and you think, oh, it's just about the money, okay, that's that kind of employee that you are, and you will jump from one job to the next. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that is the attitude you have, and you will pay the price for that, if you like. If on the other hand you are an employer who's only interested in the money, you will also, there's a price tag on anything we do. So if we approach the world with compassion and kindness, I think a lot of things will happen far more smoothly and with less friction and fewer resignations and fewer tribunals and all that stuff. And I know employment law in the US and the UK and Europe are completely different. Less protection for employees in the States than in Europe. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We all have our needs and wants. But if we are too militant about what I need, then we forget the bigger picture. I know I'm rattling on here, but something like getting paid. I've had a conversation early on in my career with my translation colleagues who said, well, the company doesn't pay us enough. Okay, well, the company's not paying you. Well, what do I mean by that? So, well, no, the company's clients are paying you, because without clients, without customers, there's no income, there's no salary. So if you do a rubbish job, then we will lose customers. Therefore, there will be no money coming in. Therefore, we can't get paid. And it's just that simple equation that hit home for a couple of people. And well, maybe it's not just about me and how much I can get, but how do I get to that point?
I know what, and I always, when I look back and I take a look at the discussion that you and I had, and that really hits me hard because I look at my customers as well today, which I deal with businesses, and they talk about. You're right, employees. They talk about some of the relationships that they have, and I stop them also and say, "But you know what? You're right. It's like you told me. You said it's a tango. We're both in the dance together." And we have to think about what can we do, like for instance, employees, what can you do that would actually even broaden and make that business stronger? What could you do that would actually put the spotlight on yourself? Just not just what's in your job description, but think about what it is that you personally, what are your attributes? What are your gifts? Bring those in and let it be seen. I mean, I'm not saying be boastful, but just take time and like as Pete was saying, there's two sides here to the Venn diagram. There are two circles, right? And then there's the sweet spot. And we all have to find our way, there. The employers, executive levels, they have to exactly take care of themselves. And as you said, their mindset, because if you look at a business, and if it's really a lot going on and people are like talking against them, when you look at leadership, you will find they're struggling themselves. So you're right. We have to really stop and think about what's best for both. Look at both sides.
And the way to figure that out is to be clear about yourself. Because if you know what your values are in life, and you go to work every day, whether you work from home or you work in the office, in the factory, on the train, wherever you are, if you find that your values do not match up with or align with the values of the organization you work for, then that begins to answer the question whether you should go or if you should stay. Because you can stay and feel uncomfortable, or you could go and look for something that more matches your values and what you want. And yeah, you can do that. You can try to influence what you can whilst you're there, because you play a part as well. And also remember that yes, employers have a lot of responsibility to keep the wheels turning and money coming in and all the rest of it, but they also have a responsibility to keep their employees safe, physically and psychologically. Certainly in the UK they do. That's the jurisdiction I know the most about, so I'm going to stay away from saying what it is in other places. But everyone, whether they are high ranking or low ranking, are human beings, and they all have feelings, emotions, and whether you have a fancy job title or a not so fancy one, you are still a human being, and we all need to treat each other with kindness. And it's a choice. You can be kind or you can be nasty. It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, then I ask, well, what makes you choose one or the other? And then that's a completely different conversation with my clients. So it sometimes it looks very clear cut, but life is not clear cut. Neither is business. Nothing moves in a straight line. So we have to roll with the punches and decide, well, actually, I thought what I did was right. I liked it at the time, but now I don't. And that's absolutely fine, because you will have developed, the people you're around will have developed, the business as such may have developed, politics, all sorts of things happen while you robotically go to work and do your thing 9 to 5. And then if you then wake up saying, well, I don't like this anymore, that's perfectly okay. And there are lawyers who leave law because it doesn't add up anymore for them to be in law. I left translation. That's no crime. It just means I outgrew what I did, and every single day I use what I learned at business school and in my translation world. Right now I'm speaking a foreign language. so whatever we've done in the past is the reason why we can do what we're doing today. And that is what we do today is what we can build on to do the next thing that we want to do. And yes, that is going to be uncomfortable. And we're talking about 500 moments of discomfort as well. And if I look back over my career and my life, I can probably give you all 400, all 500. That's not the point, because, the objective is not to be uncomfortable or have discomfort. The objective is to find out how to deal with it. And the steps that I have taken that have been the biggest ones have been when something wasn't right, when I was uncomfortable. And then, I've started my own business. I think people start their own business for two reasons, either because they want to or because they have to. And I started mine out of necessity, not because I really wanted to. But I got to a point where that was the way out for me. And who's going to hire someone in his late 50s for anything? And I didn't want to be a freelance consultant trying to get work from the same people that didn't really work out with before. So I chose a different direction. So it took me about 35 years of my career, I think, to figure out truly what is my purpose. And once you find out what your purpose is, everything clicks into place. And that's also one of the answers to the question, should you go or should you stay? Are you actually clear about what your purpose is? I was always more interested in the people I worked with or worked for than what I was hired to do. But I didn't realize until about 3.5 decades later, from when I started my journey. That's okay. Sometimes it's being it clear, sometimes it's not. But looking back, I was always more interested in helping the people I worked for or worked with. And I always ended up with the jobs as a consultant that had to do with people. And I had some very deep conversations with people at random, because apparently I'm approachable. So they just talked and I listened, and I thought, yeah, I should be doing this, not figuring out if the machines are lined up correctly or if the pallet racking is in the right design. So again, that was the technical aspect of my job that I didn't really enjoy, but I enjoyed the people I was working with. So it made sense for me to go down that route. And, it didn't even, the bell didn't even ring clearly enough when up against resistance to change in an American corporation I worked for in the UK, that I started doing a degree in psychology. It was just, I just wanted to know more about why would people be so resistant to change. So me being me, I didn't buy a book about this. I did a full degree and did some coaching qualifications afterwards as well, because there were financial crises, and I thought I need to have an opportunity for a second income if the first one falls apart. And then gradually I combined the two, and this is why I'm now the emotional weightlifter.
Beautiful. You know what? Absolutely. And I wanted to just say to you, what do you think activity wise? And this is what on my end that I'm doing with businesses. I speak to them about charitable giving, because, and if you notice, even in my book, that's what's happening with the 500 Moments of Discomfort, is that there's a charitable giving, which we can do as a team. What about team building? Any type of activity that you actually maybe put in place or speak with them about that deals with team spirit? Anything like that?
Well, it's team comes up in different ways. If I speak with a leadership team, they might have difficulties within their own team, or it may be working brilliantly. When I speak to individual lawyers, they often talk about the team that is or isn't there at work or at home. Because if the family doesn't work as a team, then there will be conflict. So a team is different from a group. Okay, a team is a group of people pulling in the same direction, whereas a group is just a group of people pulling in any old direction. So if there isn't a sense of direction, if there isn't agreement on how we do things, then it can be quite difficult to talk about team. And the best thing you can do is get communication going. It's not really charitable. It's about survival. Get the communication going in the right way. Listen to understand instead of listening to respond, for example.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. We really do have to, like you said, stop and listen deeply to what's being said, because Peter, you're right, you can miss so much by just waiting to respond, instead of taking the time just to stop, and listen. And that's why each person, each writer in 500 Moments of Discomfort, will be giving their 500 moments. And as you know, when I started, you remember I was looking for 500 stories, remember, from the start. And I changed it. I changed it, transformed it, to 500 moments being 500 seconds. And if you take 500 seconds and you convert it to minutes, you come up with 8.5 minutes. And so each writer, per chapter, per section of the book, will be sharing anywhere between 8.5 minutes, to 10 minutes about their journey, about something they've experienced, a discomfort, and how they evolved. Your discomfort, how it empowered you, and how you evolved.
And what you will see from that work, Marlene, is that we all have different points of discomfort. Because what's uncomfortable to you may mean nothing to me. And what I think is my point of discomfort, other people might think, oh yeah, for sure, or really? Is that it? So there isn't a yardstick that you can apply which says that is where we now have discomfort. My discomfort very often has been boredom. I was bored at work. Now that's not comfortable. It's not the end of the world either. It's not something that needs a diagnosis. It's something that needs a light bulb moment, which says, well, if I'm bored here, what would get me energized? What would get me engaged? And that's why I've jumped from, I went from translation into project management, into project support office, into supply chain consultancy. I did a couple of more qualifications. I needed to challenge myself. To get excited about something, because what I did was not exciting. And having worked for 18 years as a supply chain consultant, I learned an incredible amount about people and behaviors in different countries, in different industries, public sector, private sector, different European countries, different cultures. So all of that combined with being a foreigner abroad, means I see things in a different light, maybe. And although I am not a lawyer, I can still help lawyers because I can ask the questions that another lawyer who does what I do, because they exist, that they will not ask because it's all sort of understood, it's all internal knowledge. Whereas I come in completely naive to all sorts of things and can ask those questions that there would be questions I probably wouldn't ask in translation because I take, we all know that's how it is. But someone from the outside can pinpoint, how did you get to that? I've worked in pharmaceuticals, in home entertainment, contact lenses, crystal glasses, you name it, food. And yeah, it may be distribution, it may be supply chain, it may be manufacturing, but it's all different. It's all different people, it's all different scenarios that may have the same name or label, but there's always a different story behind it. So one of the things that I have learned is to not have preconceptions about what people are telling me. Let them talk, let me listen, and then ask the questions afterwards.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Absolutely. And I just want to tell you that I can relate, and I'm sure some of you out there can relate as well. Think about it. When aren't there times when you feel bored working somewhere, even in a business?
We don't all need to be career driven and want to go to the top and have initiative like there's no tomorrow. We need a bit of both in business and in life. So yes, I am saying, well, don't just think about yourself, but do think about yourself first. Because if you're not in the right place, you will not be the right person to be around in a business relationship or in a romantic relationship. At the end of the day, business is not about business, it's about relationships. And without that, it doesn't work. For someone like me, actually, it doesn't matter how many fancy techniques or letters I may have after my name. If the client emotional weightlifter relationship doesn't work, then nothing works. And that's why I always invite people to have a conversation with me first. It's confidential, it's free of charge, there's no obligation to buy anything. It's just, let's have a chat, let's figure out who we are. Do you think you can stomach working with me? And do I think I can actually help? And if the answer is no to one or both of them, well, okay, now we know that. There's no point in dragging ourselves through that pain. So go and find somebody else. And we can part as friendly as we did when we first met. And that's what I think it's all about, making the right matches.
And actually, before we end, Peter, I just wanted you, if you will, because the audience wants to hear just an overview of what you feel they would receive from reading your story in 500 Moments of Discomfort. Your story, what could they actually, what are you saying that they could actually walk away with, and maybe some maybe find a relevance to and be able to use in their lives?
That means I should be able to remember which story I've told. But
You have talked to me about a lot. You read about a lot of stuff.
What I think you can go away with is your level of discomfort is your level of discomfort. Let no one tell you that it doesn't apply, and let it be a signal to you to go and do something different. Don't think of discomfort as being you as a failure. You haven't done something wrong. Don't go and kick yourself for having only realized it now. We don't know until we know. So be kind to yourself. That's my message. Accept that things are not going the way you thought they would, and there's 1.5 million reasons why it wasn't. You can only control what's in front of you and what you can control. You can't control the future. We get anxiety by trying to control the future, not by thinking about it. Because if we don't think about the future, we can't make plans. We can't get excited about stuff. So try to not do too much. If you push too hard, you get the opposite of what you want, and you burn out and you get disappointed. So almost like take a step back and look closer.
Wow. I like that. Take a step back and look closer. And I wanted to just invite everybody out there today to when you view this, think about a lot of what Peter said today, and I want you to see how relatable this can be in your own lives. Challenge yourself, just like I've done, Peter's doing right now, and a lot of you have. But challenge yourself even more. If you want, reach out and speak with me about the 500 moments of discomfort. That's something that's occurred in your life, and share it. And that way, you empower who? You empower readers. Okay, you're empowering your the businesses that will be listening to. They'll be reading. So it'll be the readers, and I'm looking at the different aspects, the businesses, the customers, there's so many different aspects of and the community, because when you look at a portion of the proceeds will be going to nonprofit, and I like to invite nonprofits to come and speak with me, because you can talk about the different types of donations that you could receive through 500 moments of discomfort, and they'll also get a chance to hear your story. So come, everybody, speak with me. See if this will be a good fit for you. Come, tell your story. If you're an aspiring author, you don't have a book out yet, but you're writing it. Come, come, and we will allow you to invite people to know more about your story. And those existing authors out there, existing, and Peter's one, and Peter, who may want to write a book, also another book, then this is a a good place to talk about it, because in this 500 moments of discomfort, you will see the story. It'll be the discomfort. It'll be how discomfort helped that person to evolve. They've evolved, just like Peter spoke of. Then he'll look at their bio, look at actually how the community service impacts them. Community service. And then last of all, you'll be looking at there'll be some type of event that will be at the end of each story that you'll be invited to attend. So want to just thank you everybody again for joining us today. And Peter, would you like to just give one last aspect of that great genius of yours? Just give us one last statement before we end today.
I've been called many things in my life. I'm the emotional weightlifter because that's a comment I often get from my clients, that it feels like an emotional weight has lifted off their shoulders. I've always also been called a maverick psychologist. It's great praise. Now, something that people have said to me that I should be careful with is being so generous with my time. That's their opinion. If you want to have a chat with me, if you want to know more, well, get in touch. Let's organize a chat. We all on Zoom these days, or any electronic medium that may or may not work on the day. So I'm happy to have a chat whether you're a lawyer or not. We are human beings. If there's something that you want to discuss with me, why not? It's also about networking, getting to know each other. Who do you know? Who do I know? How can we help each other? So not everything, I think, should be just for cash. So I'm on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
You can Google me. There'll be ways in which you can find me. I'm sure. If
That's
not,
the way I'll
if
have
not,
the information attached. It will be attached, Peter. And thank you again, my friend, not only for today, but I want to say to everybody right now who's listening, Peter will be one of the writers in the book, and I've got some others who are coming, and they are what I call the founders, because they're the ones who were there with me when this all started. When this journey started, Peter was there. Peter was there sharing stories, sharing comments, saying that I love this, Marlene. I like what you're doing. And we came together and interacted online. It wasn't just a post, it was an interaction. And Peter Abrahamsen was right there. He was right there along with me. So I want to tell you, that's why he means the world to me. And there's so many others who will be joining me as well. But thank you so much for being here with us. And also look forward to actually joining us when we do the publication of 500 Moments of Discomfort.
it's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure. Been a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me, Molly.